That's one thing I hope students understand too is no matter how much research we've done or how much knowledge we have, how much we teach this, like communication is difficult for everyone, no matter what you know. We're not perfect at it either. And I think as teachers, one way to set the example is to let our students know that we make mistakes and that we're always trying to grow too. One of my favorite things about working here is that I get to interact with a lot of different students who, teach me stuff and hopefully, hopefully I'm teaching them stuff.
What are some common challenges that people struggle with, and how does the communication discipline help to address those problems?
Conflict in our relationships, I think, is something that we deal with. I think communication skills kind of give us, if nothing else, the knowledge of and the time to step back and manage our emotions a little bit, not feeling some type of way so much that it impacts the way that you're attacking somebody instead of, being assertive rather than aggressive. Sometimes we tend to avoid communicating with people that are different than us. We don't always do things perfectly. So sometimes hearing how someone else does things can be very beneficial to us.
I wonder, do you have any stories that you feel would help bring this kind of conversation into focus for people who struggle to understand how to apply it?
One of my favorite stories, and this is something that I always tell my classes, is that a lot of times we view conflict as a bad thing, but it's not always a bad thing because, as you know, it can give us new insight into our relationships. And a lot of romantic couples specifically always have that little conversation when it comes to decide what to eat for dinner or where to get dinner. And it's always like, I don't know. What do you want? And I'm like, well, I don't know. What do you want? And then she says it again. I'm like, I really don't care. And she says, you never make the decision. And so, at first, that's a playful little argument you have as a new couple. But after you've been together for, 5, 6 years, you get married. And if you're still having that conversation, maybe it means that there's an underlying thing happening that you don't quite understand. You haven't fully discussed the conflict or those failure events that cause that conflict. One day she was like, we have this conversation every day or every time we decide what to eat. You never want to make the decision, and I always have to make the decision. I was like, I don't understand. It's just food. I literally just need to fill the void. I don't care. And she's like, yeah, but this is just a small sample of what happens in our life together is that you never want to make the decisions, no matter how small or how big. And then she gives me examples like that time that we found that house in Austin that we wanted to rent, and you wanted to drag your feet on that and not make the decision. And if I wouldn't have made, and this is her speaking, if I wouldn't have made that decision, then we wouldn't have been living there. Or when we bought our house, I was on the fence about it and she was ready to make that decision. And learning that those small little arguments about what to eat for dinner, really the underlying thing that was happening and in much of our relationship is that I wasn't making the decisions. Obviously, I see once she told me that, I understood the problem and understood how that bothered her because it does put a lot of pressure on her to make those decisions. The story of how we can use communication to help those things wasn't even my story. It was her using those communication strategies that kind of got us over that. We still sometimes can't decide what to eat, but on the bigger decisions, I consciously make an effort to be more involved in those.
Some of our best stories, some of the things that really can resonate with our students are the things that we struggle with in our personal life, and pulling that into the classroom to really bring something to life. I really like how that was done. I wonder what part of the job, what part of teaching communication and helping to impart people this wisdom, what part of your work do you enjoy most?
The answer really is the students. Developing relationships with them in the classroom. Oftentimes that teacher student relationship is talked about as an interpersonal relationship. And, if you can create an environment in your classroom where there is an affinity or this closeness between you and your students, it's going to create more affect for the material and make it more likely that they're going to actually internalize this stuff and maybe even use it in their real life. Like, really, that's the goal.
What do you find to be the most essential of all the skills?
Relationship maintenance, probably. I'm just overall, and I say that because I think incorporates so many of those specific skills within it, right? Why are we attracted to the people that we're attracted to? And once we are, how do we communicate that attraction to them? And once we do, how do we initiate that relationship? And then how do we use self disclosure to move through the stages of relational development in our efforts to become more intimate with one another, closer with one another? Communication is important for many reasons, but one of the things that it's most important for, without it, we wouldn't have relationships. And to me, relationships are what life's about, right? Creating relationships help you meet so many social needs, affection needs, inclusion needs, but also like relationships and work are super important. And so why would you not use these skills to improve your life, to improve the lives of the people around you, to do your job better, to be a better husband, to be a better brother or son, to be a better friend, right? Why would you not use these skills? Whether it's related specifically to the field you're learning, communication is unique in that it helps us understand who we are and what we like. And so, yes, we may have gotten our degree in this one specific thing, and it might not seem like there's a direct path to a career, but that learning those communication skills allows you to know what you really love. And sometimes the jobs we get aren't directly related to our degree, but that's how comm is different because it makes us universal in a way.
So the great thing about a communication degree is you can do anything. And the danger of a communication degree is you can do anything because specialists we know make more. So picking something early, I think is something that we often remind our students to do, especially when they're majoring in communication. What I wonder, what do you want your students to be known for?
Decent human beings, like just be a good person, be good to yourself, be good to the people around you, take care of yourself, take care of the people around you. And think about it, right? If you're taking care of yourself and the people around you, and then the people over here are taking care of themselves and the people around them, then all of a sudden we're all taking care of each other. And I think people would be much better if they really understood that you don't, you know, people want to change the world, but it oftentimes seems so daunting that we don't know what I as an individual can do. But really, that's all you have to do, right? Take care of you, take care of the people around you. And if every group is doing that, eventually we're taking care of each other. I really just want them to be known for being decent human beings. Yeah.
I love that. And that's where the change starts, right? You can't change things unless you first change yourself, right? And on that note, what's one piece of advice that you would give someone who's starting out or who wants to improve their communication practice, who wants to change themselves so that they can then create a better community and then world? What's that one piece of advice you would choose?
Don't be down on yourself for not knowing everything in the world. Don't be down on yourself. Don't be hard on yourself for not knowing how to interact with this person or how to do this job or how to talk to these people from a different culture. I mean, I think a lot of the textbooks that we read in our field say things like, in order to be a better communicator, one thing you should do is tolerate ambiguity. The fact that you don't have to know everything. And I would kind of take that a step further. Instead of saying like tolerate ambiguity, embrace it, right? Embrace those things you don't know, because the only way to build yourself and grow is to learn things. And by embracing that ambiguity, it's going to get you out there asking questions and talking to people that might have some differences, and we all learn from that. So I think embrace ambiguity. If I had to put it on a bumper sticker, we'll go there.
Fantastic. What about the people who are afraid and just have a feeling of dread when they read that bumper sticker? What advice would you give them?
That we're all afraid. We're all afraid of something, but I think one of the similarities that we as humans have to some degree, we're all afraid of meeting different people. We're all afraid of change. We're all afraid of messing up a relationship, right? We're all afraid of something. And just, I know it's easier said than done, right? Don't be afraid, but realizing that you're not the only one in that position. And if you have the relationships that you use, the skills that we've been talking about, if you have the relationships that you've built, then you're not alone anyways. So I would say embrace ambiguity. But for those that kind of are fearful of that, is, I mean, be respectful, but don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to be wrong, and realize that you're not the only one who has those questions or those fears, I guess.
We're not alone. Excellent. The most important action that someone can take today to develop their communication skills, to develop their relational competence, to step out into that abyss and embrace ambiguity. What's one thing, the one action that they can get started with today?
Right? As humans, we don't do anything unless we're motivated to do it. We don't like doing things we have to do. So, kind of shifting your paradigm to thinking about, how can I motivate myself to do this thing, to practice this skill? Um, you have to be internally motivated to get better, to practice these skills. And I think once students realize the impact and the benefits that these skills have on our personal relationships, our, romantic relationships, family relationships, our workplace relationships, our online relationships, once we realize how important those relationships are and how communication can benefit those, then I think that helps to motivate people. Yeah, get out there. Don't be, again, don't be afraid to put yourself in a situation that you don't fully understand. And I'm not talking about unsafe situations, right? I'm talking about communicative situations, while still being respectful, other oriented, polite, kind, and just have good intentions, right? Just have good intentions.
Mark, where can we find you if we want to follow up? How can people get in touch with you?
I work at Texas State University, so you can find me on our department's website. Also, if you ever have any questions or want to reach out for any reason, you can email me at mp Mark Paz. So mp53 at texasstate.edu. That's my online presence for the most part as of now.
Awesome. Mark, thank you so much. I
Of
so
course,
appreciate you
man.
taking the time to join
Yeah.
us today.
I really, really enjoyed it. So even though I was nervous and even though I was afraid, dang it, I just did it anyways, right?
You stepped into the abyss, you
I did.
embraced ambiguity, and you
I
had a
did it.
conversation.
Dang right.